Hi, I'm Brandon Berry, and my thesis was called Mass Produced Dark Times, and it was over forest deforestation and how it affects climate change. This is a very important issue in my life because I care for the environment uh, very much so, and I also care for the ocean's health. And in 4300, I wrote my thesis paper over the ocean's health. And since the two biggest factors on our earth is the ocean and the forest, I thought it was only right to write a thesis over forest health and its impacts on how our weather patterns are and other factors that pertain to climate change. As usual, money plays an important role in how people handle and live their daily lives around the forest. There is people that inhabit these forests that make decisions based off being in poverty, so therefore they don't have any moral standards when it comes to the forest because they need money so bad to feed their families and feed their villages, so they're willing to do whatever it takes. There are so many working parts in the issue of forest health that it really is an interdisciplinary problem. There are people that need to monitor the situation, people that implement the situation, like the policymakers and the lawmakers. There are enforcement agencies that need to be called on that have been turning a blind eye to this issue due to corporate greed because they have been getting paid off. My thesis is going to show the importance of making the information gaps smaller. Making these information gaps smaller will help the people that are in poverty, that are having to make decisions. It'll help them gain a better knowledge and understanding of what the lasting impacts of what we are doing right now to the forest is going to have in the years to come. If we keep using the forest as our own personal resource melting pot, then it's not going to last forever because the forest is shrinking at an alarming rate. And some communities know the damage that they're causing, but big companies and lobbying prevents anything from happening in these countries and in the USA. The biggest companies that we have buy off enough politicians so that when laws and policies are being made, there's always a majority of people that will say nay or not sign off on policies that are gonna be more restrictive of people using the forest resources. Trees are natural filtration devices for the greenhouse gases that are emitted when we are in the process of cutting down trees or getting resources out of the forest, whether that be oil, petroleum, whatever. Anything that we do to take the resources out of the forest is causing carbon to increase in the atmosphere. It's a double-edged sword whenever we cut down a tree because trees, since they store so much carbon that they've absorbed, whenever they're cut down, the trunk releases all the carbon that it was storing. So therefore, there's one less tree to absorb carbon in the atmosphere, and also you're getting the carbon that these trees have stored for some over hundreds of years. So it's massive amounts of carbon that release these greenhouse gases that then warm our climate more and more. Climate change has always been a hot button issue, but for some reason policymakers have always had climate change on the back burner. And one of the priorities of the policy change is to eliminate deforestation from happening due to economic endeavors. So natural deforestation, just the forest breaking down on its own, is perfectly okay because the forest can recuperate as fast as it's breaking down. But these economic endeavors cut down so many trees at one time that it makes the forest impossible to be able to regenerate itself because of the amount of trees that have been cut down. All the complex issues that are involved with climate change, deforestation, it begs of this problem being solved by an interdisciplinary nature. And I think the better our population, the global population, is educated, the more results we will then see in forest health and positive growth. In my literature review, I wanted to find research that was on both sides of the aisle, because since this issue is such a partisan issue, I hate the fact that people make it a partisan issue and won't look at the research if it doesn't support their opinion. And that's the biggest problem that I wanted to solve in my thesis, is that we need to have a global information system so that if everybody adopts this information, there isn't a political group or a person that can deny it if the rest of the world in science and research is agreeing with it and saying, yes, this is what's going on. So I want to read my thesis question directly. Will a universal global thread of information and research be created so that people of the world can make responsible and sustainable decisions about their local forest health and well-being? Also, can a universal knowledge not be based on political stance or lobbying due to the permanent nature of climate change on forest health and production? That's why this issue is so important to me, because of the permanent nature. The things that we're doing today can have a permanent impact on forest health, regardless of what opinion you have on the forest or what political side you stand on. If you keep taking and taking and taking from the ocean or the forest, then it's going to have impacts that go beyond our life, but have impacts on our future family's life and the globe itself. I think empirical quantitative evidence is the best way to go on trying to find a solution for my thesis. The more solid answers that we have that can be proved with numbers or science or research, the better off a global database will be and better interpreted. There are 820 million people that live near forest or near savannas. So whatever policy that we make is going to greatly affect them. And that's such a big population that whether the policy works or not, it's either going to be very positive for a lot of people or very negative for a lot of people. So there are two disciplines that I feel are the strongest to solving this problem. One, forest conservation, and two, natural resource management. And then to take a scope inside the scope, my second discipline, natural resource management, that's what we're trying to attain in the bigger picture of forest conservation. I believe that the forest in general, all around the world, do have a lot to offer when it comes to natural resources for us as humans to use. And we do need to utilize a lot of the resources that the forest does offer to sustain our lifestyle. But we also need to manage the resources accordingly so that we're not using them all now and depleting the sources completely for the future. Forest conservation plays a key role in understanding the weather systems like flood and drought and how they affect the forest, because there is natural occurring things that happen that are also destructing the forest at the same time. So that's why human interaction with the forest and taking from it just intensifies the process, because there's already a deforestation process happening just by nature alone. If we can sustainably manage forests, they can play a key role in helping us fight climate change because of what I mentioned earlier about how they absorb carbon emissions. So if we keep the forest thriving, the more carbon that we release, it'll be naturally absorbed by the trees. So they're a natural defense mechanism against climate change in itself, so long that they're there. As I stated earlier, natural resource management is mandatory because of our lifestyle. So we are having to take from the forest to sustain our lifestyle in all countries, not just America, but America is looked at as using the most resources and not really caring about them. However, America has taken great measures to make wood more recyclable and more durable so it lasts longer, but when it does break down, it's able to be turned into something else, like plywood. So, like, making plywood lessens the need for virgin wood to be harvested in the forest, therefore leaving more trees in the forest. The reason it's so devastating is because it causes the most amount of energy to get to the final product that goes into our gas tanks. I feel that identifying conflicts was a very important issue for me because I want to be well-rounded and know the pros and the cons of all of the research I'm doing. I want to know what the other side of the argument is and what people are saying. I did find an article that said that carbon is helping the forest regrow due to, like, when the tree absorbs the carbon, that helps it grow more because that acts as a fertilizer. However, with this research, it wasn't completely accurate because it was getting numbers based off regional forests that some have had sustained growth for 30 plus years and some have had sustained loss for 30 plus years. So they were using the numbers based off the forest that had the plus growth for 30 years. Either way, on both sides of the argument, carbon affects the atmosphere, which affects climate change. Whether it's positive or negative, there's either a cooling or a heating. In either way, 1 degree heating or cooling affects a change all around the world. So in conclusion, the more common knowledge we have about climate change and how forest health has affected it, the better off the 820 million that are living in and around the forest will be more engaged and more informed in what their daily decisions are doing. I just want to thank everyone this semester and anyone that views this video. It's been a fun semester. Best of luck to everybody out there. I hope all of us graduate, and best of luck in life. Brandon Berry, thank you. With that was my oral presentation over forest health and climate change and how the two interact. My main goal I was trying to get across was that we need a more universal knowledge to better attain the solutions we need for positive impact. I think easy to read guidelines, easy to read pamphlets, easy commercials, not big scientific terms. Just break the knowledge down easy, depending on the region, depending on the socioeconomic status. You can gauge on what information would benefit what group of people and let them take that knowledge and use it how they see fit, by also following the policy and guidelines that have been implemented. Forest conservation is the macro view that I wanted to take for forest health and climate change, because forest conservation is the main goal that is in mind in everything that we're talking about in my thesis. Forest conservation is conserving the forest, so any policy or research is going to be formed in the nature of forest conservation.